Well, new claims that world leaders, as well as our enemies, are no longer taking the United States seriously because of President Obama's approach to foreign policy. That is the claim of his critics. First, here is conservative columnist on this, Charles Krauthammer.
The fact that people don't like the United States is not new. What's new is that these non-likers have no respect for the United States. As Jason indicates, nobody worries or cares about what Obama says because it carries no weight. Remember how the president said, we're going to hold accountable those who killed our ambassador in Libya. We're going to hold accountable the authorities in Syria who have killed so many of their own people. He's talked 100 times about holding X or Y or Z accountable. Nobody's held accountable, and everyone knows that.
Powerful statement from Charles Krauthammer last night. Bob Beckel joins us now, former Democratic campaign manager and co-host of The Five. He's already shaking his head. We'll get to him in just a moment. Mary Catherine Ham is editor-at-large at hotair.com and a Fox News contributor. They are strong words, Bob. You disagree?
Well, with all due respect to my friend and colleague, Dr. Krauthammer, I was an Assistant Secretary of State, and I know a little bit about foreign policy. I think Charles should stick to psychiatry in the Middle East, which he knows. The fact of the matter is, when you say something like that about the President of the United States, what did he expect we were going to do? Did he expect we were going to invade China to get him to give it back to us? Secondly, if the shoe were on the other foot and there was a Chinese dissident here, do we think we would not expedite him to a place he wants to go to? It's a ridiculous statement on its face.
But I think he's pointing to the larger picture. You know, you look at Syria, where the president said that Assad must go. You look at Iran, where the president said that we could not, allow nuclear weapons to be continued. You look at Benghazi. There's another example where the president stood up and said, we will find the killers of these 4 people. And Mary Catherine, the point that Charles, I think, was making was cumulative. The Snowden bit is the icing on the cake, perhaps, is his argument. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is aside from what exactly I think should be done with Snowden, because I appreciate the leak and think it's important for the American people to know what's going on here. So aside from that, I do think that it's a fair question to say, we've been practicing this smart power and the reset with Russia for 5 years, and ostensibly it's supposed to pay off at some point, and we are supposed to get this kind of cooperation. And so I think while you have the president himself meeting with presidents of China and Russia, and this going on at the exact same time, I do think that raises some questions about exactly how effective that particular policy is.
I might want to point out that it was the Russians who warned us twice about the guy who bombed the Boston Marathon.
Right.
I think it did pay off.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that, and we've talked about that in great detail here, and that clearly should have been paid more attention to on the intelligence front. But Bob, I want to go back to the big picture here, because if we do lose respect, as a nation, if we're not feared to a certain extent by China or by Russia, where are we? And I would ask you to point to a place where we're doing better now in these tricky relationships than we were 5 years ago. Can you tell me one place where that's happening?
NATO, Eastern Europe, the Pacific Rim. We're stronger with the Japanese and the South Koreans than we've ever been. We have had, we're the only power that can take on China and the Pacific Rim, who are trying to get, who are, by the way, the most dangerous enemy of the United States, more than Muslim terrorists, I think. And the United States is the one single entity that can do that, and we've projected our power there. And there have been a number of new accords that have been signed with the South Koreans and the Japanese to take on the Chinese if necessary. So we haven't gotten the killers of Benghazi yet. That's true. We will. Iran has not got a nuclear weapon. It won't. So, I just think this kind of thing, all it's doing is perpetuating our enemies is what we're doing. I mean, frankly, it's a little bit much to be carrying.
Criticizing the president is perpetuating our enemies'
Criticizing the president is saying the United States is weak and you can be run all over. I think that's great. I would never do that to George Bush. I would never do it to George Bush. I wouldn't do it to Ronald Reagan. And it's an insult that they would do it to Barack Obama.
But Bob, did you watch Jay Carney yesterday? I mean, when he came out and spoke to the press about this issue, it was very difficult to sort of put together a couple of strong sentences to explain what we're doing here. It was like, well, we're very unhappy with China. Yeah, Russia, we're very unhappy with how they're handling this too. But what does that mean? How does that translate into any kind of result? Is the question.
I can understand that, and I think Carney probably, frankly, has stayed in that job too long. But we are in the middle of some serious START negotiations with the Russians right now, in quiet, These has to do with the number of nuclear weapons we have. There are a number of things going on with China on economic issues. We have got to keep the bigger picture in mind. It's not about projecting power, it's projecting results, and I think we're going to get results.
Well, I don't think we get either, but I mean, part of the issue too, if you look, for instance, there's language in the immigration bill that gives preference to Hong Kong on visas, which we're not going to be able to change. So we're not exactly hitting them where it hurts.
And where do you think that came from? Where do you think that amendment came from?
Came from a senator.
It came from a
and we haven't been able
Republican,
to change it. And we haven't been able to change it, partly because the process is so messed up. But we're not exactly hitting them where it hurts, is my point. We can take the reins here and do some things. And there's just a basic ineptitude with the intelligence community, by the way, not being able to find this guy.
I love you anyway. It's a good debate.
Bob, Beckel, we love you guys too. Thank you very much. We'll see you both later.
Until the next one.